I have a lot of grit. I can do really hard things for a long time and get through them. And as long as they are for the benefit of the people around me or the benefit of the world, I don't have a lot of grit for mindless tasks. But as long as I'm doing work that I believe in, I will buckle down and do that work. And I think that goes all the way back to shoveling in the middle of a snowstorm, right? And the other thing is being able to get up on stage and speak. I did a lot of that even in my middle and high school years. And the ability to just stand up on stage and talk to people and engage with people and make eye contact and make an impact is something that I learned at a really young age that has benefited me through my entire career.
Mm-hmm. AJ, it is absolutely awesome having you here. We've spoken a few times and, I've just been looking forward to this conversation and getting to know you even a little bit better. So to get us started, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
My name is AJ Lauer. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the owner of Thriving IBIS Leadership Solutions, which is a one-person firm where I provide leadership development for primarily people who work in science and technology through one-on-one coaching, various types of trainings, and workshops, retreat leadership, all of that good stuff.
Yes, and we will get into all of that later because lucky for me, I know a little bit more about your business and the work you do. So I would love other people to learn as well. But for now, let's travel all the way back in time to young you. What was that very first job? I would like to say like that very first dollar you ever earned. How old are you? What were you doing? All of that.
I don't know about the very first dollar I ever earned. Maybe that was snow shoveling. I grew up in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin winters are pretty intense. And so we would often, my older brother and I would often go out and shovel people's driveways. And we would often do it in kind of a foolish, childish way, I guess, like in the middle of the storm. And so we would go out and we'd be like, hey, pay us $15 to shovel your driveway. And the people who would answer the door would be like, but we're going to get 6 more inches of snow. But we didn't care. We loved to be out in it. So.
Wow, that's cool. I wish you were in my neighborhood. We actually had 2 young boys come here one day and I was like, yes, basically anything they wanted. I think they asked me for like $25. I was like, yes. Like do it. It was so hard, so much. So that is super cool.
Yeah, the snow in Colorado here is much fluffier than what we grew up with in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, it's heavy snow, and here it's like you can actually use a snowblower. So it was a different thing.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, because I mean, I only met snow. I don't know how to say it. I only came across snow when I was like 36, so I didn't really know different snows. Just thought it was more or less snow. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I needed you in my life when you were a kid. Okay, so that was the first thing. And your brother, is he older, younger than you?
Older. 1 year.
Older. Okay. So did you make him do most of the work? Just tell us now.
Oh, no, I think it was pretty even, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were both pretty scrappy.
Nice. Yeah, I was an older sister, so I guess I would have made my brother do most of the work. All right. So, okay. Shoveling snow, very cool. And did you just like walk door to door? Did you know your neighbors, or were you just like arriving at houses? Because that is pretty scrappy.
We just walked around.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. How old are you?
Well, probably 5th or 6th grade, I would think.
Oh my gosh, that is brave, like going house to house. Good job. Okay, awesome. All right, so from there, after snow shoveling, what did you do next? I suppose now you're only in middle school, right? Middle school, high school.
Yeah, I think we took a couple years off from the snow shoveling, in the rest of the middle school years. But in high school, I had a job working at a pet supply store. So I was a cashier and would occasionally help stock the shelves and clean up the place and all of that kind of stuff. And then I also worked for a couple of summers at a camp for people with disabilities. So I was a junior counselor there, and that was a lot of fun. And then I wrapped up my high school years at our local Goodwill as a cashier.
Okay. So tell me about that, helping as camp counselor. What activities did you help with? All of that.
It was just like your regular camp. We had swimming, we had arts and crafts, we had, random color wars and all of that kind of stuff. But it was at a camp for people with disabilities. So it was all modified to be safe and inclusive for the folks who had special needs of varying types.
Okay, that's awesome. We have that here as well. And it's absolutely stunning to see that, people in wheelchairs trying to get into the pool. And, when my kids, you just take it for granted. So that must have taught you something at a really young age.
Absolutely. I was also volunteering at the time with the organization with their youth team, where we had monthly get-togethers with teens who had disabilities. And so I knew a lot of the campers who were in that like teenage age range, but they had campers that were all the way up to 60 and 65 years old. So it was a really cool formative experience, especially work experience, to be out there and really be responsible as a teenager for people's well-being.
Yeah. So a lot of responsibility. What were some of the lessons? Like, what do you remember? I suppose your brain is literally getting shaped at that moment. So, what do you think that has left you with?
I think, one of the early lessons there was emergency management. We had to do a little bit of training to make sure that in the event that something happened, we lost a camper or somebody got really sick, or, I was a junior camper, so I was always paired up with an adult, not junior camper, junior counselor. I was always paired up with an adult counselor. But what happens if something happens to your adult counselor and you're the only junior out there, and just thinking through how to handle different situations to make sure that we are protecting everybody that is in that space and keeping things calm and controlled.
Wow, what amazing life lessons at such a young age. That's really, really awesome. Okay, so that was high school, you said, right? Okay. And you went off to college then. All right. Did you stay close to home? Did you leave home?
I left home. I was about 90-minute drive away from home.
Okay.
So close enough to get home for a weekend, but far enough to feel like I was on my own.
And how did that feel?
It was lovely. Not that there's anything wrong with my family. I love my family, but I was definitely someone who benefited from a little bit of freedom and space in those years.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yes, at 18, I flew from South Africa and moved to London. So I feel like I can definitely relate to the space. And yes, also love my family, but needed the space, needed to like be on my own, make my life work by myself. What did you study?
I studied, I have a bachelor's in psychology, and the equivalent, they didn't have it then, but the equivalent of a minor in Japanese language and literature.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
Expect me it was an amazing major. Don't ask me to speak Japanese. I think at this point I have forgotten more Japanese than I remember, unfortunately. But that was a lot of fun. It was because it was Japanese language and literature. We got to spend a lot of time reading traditional Japanese literature. I took a course in The Tale of Genji, which is the first novel ever written in human history that we know of. That was actually written by a woman.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
I want to learn more about this.
Yes, it's an extremely interesting work of literature. It is super long. Like my book was, it's hundreds of pages long.
Whoa.
Because she published it, on a monthly basis. She would send out another episode.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's really, really long, and it does get very boring in the middle. But it was a good experience to read most of it.
Yeah. Skimming was hard. Yes. Oh, wow. Okay. So, that's fascinating. I've never done anything like that. So, what was the story about? What did you learn? You must have been exposed to a whole culture through that book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Between that book and then my other favorite was a Japanese poetry class that we took. And that happened right when I was in like the third or fourth semester of learning the language. And so I was just having enough of the language knowledge to be able to actually see the Japanese and the English next to them and see how it related. And that was really cool. Genji is a lot about hierarchy and leadership and growth and change. It talks a lot about different relationships between courtiers and their lovers and the wars that happen and all of that kind of stuff. And so it's extremely insightful into the culture during that time period. But also just an interesting, I've always been interested in leadership studies. And so it was a good different cultural lens into leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you travel to Japan at all?
Not while I was an undergrad. I had the chance to go between my 2 semesters of my master's program just for a couple weeks to visit a friend.
Oh, wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what drew you to that? It's just, I'm going down the rabbit hole here, but I'm just so fascinated.
To the Japanese?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I studied Latin in high school. I went to a Catholic school and studied Latin, and I absolutely loved it. And I actually entered undergrad thinking that I might want to pursue a career in the classics. And when I started learning at the college level, they actually used the same books as we had used in my high school. And the thing about Latin is you're not speaking it. It's not like you're doing conversation exercises, right? Like once you have something translated, the work is done. And so I already had all of that work done for my undergraduate years, and they were not working with me when I showed up and just handed them all the work for the semester and said, okay, I'm done. Now what? And they were very rude about it. And I was like, well, that's that. I'm not going to stay in a department that's treating me this way. And so I was having a conversation with my friend Fred one day at lunch, and he was like, well, I'm thinking about taking Japanese. And I was like, that sounds interesting. Let's do it. And so we both took Japanese. And he actually ended up moving to Japan and meeting his wife, whom he's been married to forever. So he was the friend that I visited when I went out there during my master's program. So.
Wow. Very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I was just having this conversation, how one person can have such a big impact on you, change something so big. That's awesome. So what did you land up doing after you graduated? So you said, did you just study undergrad? You went straight through to your master's, or did you have breaks in between?
So when I was in undergrad, one of my jobs was to work as a resident assistant at the University of Wisconsin. We call them house fellows. And so I was a house fellow for 2 years. And I decided that I really liked it. I liked developing students. I liked providing some structure to students who were figuring out their way through college. I found that to be really fascinating. And so I went on to get my master's in higher education administration from Florida International University. So I moved from Wisconsin to Miami, Florida.
That's a good weather change, I think.
It was a good weather change, except that Hurricane Katrina came through 4 days after I moved down there. And so I literally did not really even know what a hurricane was when Hurricane Katrina came through Miami. She was only a category 2 when she came past us. She didn't turn into a 5 until she was in the Gulf. So it wasn't a major hurricane when she came through, but it was, for a little Wisconsin girl, didn't really know what she had gotten herself into. It was kind of a shocking thing to experience within the first week.
Yes, that is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, I was still in South Africa at that point, and funny enough, I worked for a Katrina, and she was kind of like a hurricane. I worked for her and her husband, and so we could joke about it being so far away, but like just even listening to the news was pretty terrifying. So I'm sure, yeah, you were okay. Like,
yeah, Miami didn't get hit very hard by Katrina, but we had several hurricanes that fall. And I think it was Hurricane Wilma was a 3. It was a category 3. And so Wilma was a little bit more intense. But by that point, I at least knew people. And so I was in my friend's house instead of in the dorm by myself. And that was a very, very much better experience for a hurricane than being alone in a dorm room.
Yes. Oh, okay. And do you hide in the bath and things, or no?
No, you don't.
No.
You just...
No, you don't.
Nope.
Okay.
You put up hurricane shutters and just try not to be too close to a window, but that's it.
Okay. Well, scary. All right. So that's your first week there. All right. And then you studied. So how long were you in Miami for?
So I was in Miami for 2 years, 2005 through 2007. And the summer in between my 2 years, I was in South Korea teaching English for most of the summer. And then I stopped in Japan on my way back to the US.
Okay. All right. We have to pause here a bit because now you're traveling, you're young. What are some hard parts of this, good parts of this? Share a story or two.
Well, I already told you about the hurricane. That was pretty wild. When I worked in Korea, we were invited over by a friend of my brother's, and I was young and dumb and didn't know better. And so the company that brought us over there actually brought us over without doing our work visa paperwork. They're like, well, you're only here for 2 months. And so that's too much work. It's too expensive. We're not going to do the paperwork. And we didn't know that until we were already in Korea. And so I spent a summer accidentally working illegally in South Korea, which hopefully nobody can come and get me for. I think we're past the statute of limitations on that.
I think so.
But there was one day that immigration came and visited, and we had to not come into work because they didn't want us to get deported. So that was pretty terrifying. And I think that's a pretty unique experience, I hope, for folks.
Yes.
One of the best experiences from that summer, though, was I actually took a ferry from Korea to Japan. And it was an overnight ferry. And it was full of all of these grandmothers, like Japanese grandmothers, who were ferrying goods back and forth between the two countries. And I was this young white American girl who spoke Japanese. And so the way that the ferry was set up was that you had like this giant sleeping room, and there was like a door that opened, and you pulled out your sleeping mat, and then you stored your stuff in there while you were sleeping. And everybody slept in one big room, and everybody was sharing food. And it was like this beautiful community of women who made this passage together all the time. And they were absolutely tickled that I spoke Japanese, like shocked and so excited. And they spent the entire time feeding me. And so it got to a point where I had to ask for help from one of the old ladies because I was like, I can't eat anymore. Can you please tell them that I can't eat anymore. And I tried to say it in Japanese, but I don't think I was saying it right. And they were just laughing at me, and or maybe they just thought it was cute. I don't know. But I spent this lovely ferry ride between Korea and Japan with all of I call them my ferry grandmothers, my FERRY grandmothers.
Oh, I love that. That is so cool. And I can see all the grandmothers trying to feed you.
Totally. Yeah, they had all these hard-boiled eggs for some reason.
And you're like, I cannot have my 7th egg, please. Oh, but that's such love, like such care in that community. I can almost picture it. That's really cool. And that sleeping arrangement, I'm sure not many people have done that in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was just this love. It was like a sleepover with a bunch of grandmothers.
Oh, that is super cool. Thanks for telling that story. Okay, so you almost get deported, not quite, but yeah, that's a whole another level of scary. Like, I mean, I'm South African, so I know all about getting visas. There's no way anyone will catch me not with a visa. We'll probably overdo visas. But when I was living in London, one of my friends from New Zealand actually got deported. So he got caught, his visa had expired, and he had to pack up everything and move within 2 days back to New Zealand. And that's like, you can't come back to the UK for like 10 years. They're pretty strict about it. So yeah, that's not a fun experience to almost get deported. I'm sure you must have been like, hide in your bed. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Amazing. I love your travels. Okay, so summer there, and then you come back. Where did you come back to? Back to Miami?
I came back to Miami. That was the summer in between my 2 years of my master's program.
Oh, okay. Yes. All right. So then you finished that up. What was next for you?
So I met my husband in my last semester of my graduate program in Miami. He was actually working in the National Hurricane Center at the time. And then we did long distance for 2 years. I went to work at the University of Illinois and ran an all-women's residence hall for 2 years. Which was a lot. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, we're going to dig into that for sure.
Yeah, it was very busy. It was very hard at times. And we were doing long distance. So we flew back and forth. One of us would fly to the other one every 3 weeks. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, tell me about that work, and then we're going to get into the long distance. But just, sure. I mean, that work, I've never been exposed to that. So tell me the stories.
Okay. So my role was a residence hall director, which meant that I was in contact with all the facilities people to make sure that the building was running the way that it needed to run for our residents who were living in the hall. I was also supervising all of the residence hall, the RAs, the advisors, who lived on each of the floors, and making sure that they had the support that they needed to follow up with their residents on rules and plan activities for them, and, do rounds of the halls to make sure that nothing too wild was happening. And then I also was on the training and development committee for the people who were developing the residence hall directors and the resident assistants, to make sure that we were all equipped to do the things that we needed to do while we were there. So that was like, tying back into that emergency management background and the programmatic background and the educational background that I had been developing even as far back as middle school.
How did you get this work? Since you're in Miami, now you go to Illinois. So how did it come about? And so, I suppose my question is really, what drew you into this?
Well, so when I was a residence hall advisor or a house fellow at the University of Wisconsin in undergrad, my supervisor was a residence hall director. So I understood what she did for me when I was in undergrad. Okay. I actually didn't originally want to go into residence life. I knew that being on call was going to be exhausting for me. I knew that I didn't really want to do emergency response at 2:00 in the morning. I knew that living where I was working was not necessarily the best decision for me at that time. However, that was the job that ended up being the most intriguing with the best location. It put me a little bit closer back to my family. And one of the benefits of working in the residence halls is that you learn about pretty much every facet of the university system when you run a residence hall, because you have to understand how advising works. You have to understand how to get students signed up for their classes. You have to understand where the mental health resources are, where the multicultural resources are, how to solve problems with the gym on campus. All of those things. You have to understand how to do that when you run a residence hall, because they come to you first. And so I kind of talk about it as being like, the residency program that doctors go through, where they have to try out all these different specialties. That's kind of what working in a residence hall is like for people who want to help run universities.
Okay. Interesting. All right. I wouldn't have understood the complexity. So that's, yeah. All right. Awesome. I see. So Miami, Illinois, and okay, he wasn't your husband at the time.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Where was he? He stayed in Miami.
Yeah.
Okay. And what does he do?
He at the time was a computer programmer for the National Hurricane Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So he had to stay there. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So how did the 2 years you said of long distance, just traveling back and forth? Wow, that's dedication. So you must have known this was a special man.
Yes.
Okay. And then when did you join up? Did you in this relationship? When did you get married?
So we did that for 2 years in Illinois, and then I moved back to Miami.
Okay.
I worked at Miami-Dade College for a couple of years, and then he got a job out here in Boulder at a different agency within NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration.
Okay.
NOAA. Yes. And so we moved out here in 2011, and when that job stuff started to happen, we were like, oh, it would actually probably be useful to be married for this move. And so we're like, oh, okay, we can finally do that. I think in our minds, we were already there, but we hadn't formalized it. So we formalized that and had our wedding and all of that good stuff in 2011, and then moved out here to Colorado.
Okay, awesome. All right, I love relationship stories. You have a very unique one. Long distance is not easy at all.
No.
Yeah, that's tough. So okay. Now you're in Boulder, 2011. So that's been a while. Okay. You've been here a while. I see. Okay. So you move Boulder. What happens next?
I spent 3 years running the student center, the student union, whatever you call it, at your university at the Colorado School of Mines, as well as their summer conferencing program. So I was there for 3.5 years, and then hit some rough patches with a bully and a supervisor who was really unsupportive. And we were also trying to get pregnant at the time. And, doctors saying it's going to be harder to get pregnant when you have a bully at work and those kinds of things. And so I left that job and spent 6 months just writing fiction, which was amazing. In 2015. And then partway through the summer in 2015, I got an email from LinkedIn saying, you may be interested in this job. And when I opened up the position description, it was basically all of these things that I had done at the university, but put into my husband's field, basically. It was at the National Center for Atmospheric Research in the computing division. But it was all of these student activities. It was event planning. It was running an internship. It was diversity, equity, and inclusion work. It was all of these things that I loved to do, but just kind of transplanted out of the university and into this research computing field.
Wow. LinkedIn knows you well.
And I didn't really use LinkedIn very much then. So It was an impressive email.
Yes. It is always the crazy, wild things that are the best stories. Okay, but now we're going to actually dig into this bully you mentioned, because sometimes when you're in it, you don't necessarily know, or you get pushed down so much that your self-confidence gets shattered, and so it's a struggle to actually get out. So I would love to know your experience, your feelings, like, you know, take us back to like when you were going through it. So not in hindsight, but like actually during the time, what made it difficult, what, you know, take us through everything so that people in a similar situation can relate and recognize it.
Yeah. So, the woman who was my bully was quite a bit older than me. And we had kind of this weird situation where I was managing all of the events and all the things that were happening in the student union, but she was the quote unquote facility manager, but she wasn't actually doing anything with the facilities people. I was really doing all of that. And so we started to have some conflict between like, whose job is it to be doing this? Whose job is it to be doing that? Um, there were some instances where she was making decisions about things where I was like, that's not what I need for running the events. And so like we started to have a little bit of conflict. And I, at the time then in 2014, was like, I feel like I'm doing two jobs here. I'm doing the management of the events and the conferences, but then I'm also doing some higher level work at this point. I'm running the events committee for the entire campus to make sure that we're all coordinating and we all know what's going on with the major events that are happening on campus. And I was really, stepping up on budget, and I was on the committee for non-faculty staff members, things like that. And I put in a proposal to my supervisor to create a secondary position, like a director level role in managing all of these campus events and things. And I said, I'm already doing all of this. It's really hard to manage all of this lower level stuff because I'm doing so much higher level work. I would like to move up into the director level and hire somebody underneath me to do all of this. And my bully, we'll call her Jane, which is not her name, but we'll call her Jane. Jane, I think, felt threatened by that. I think she felt like I was trying to take power from her. And even though that's not, I was just trying to get compensated fairly for what I was doing. But I think she felt threatened. And so what happened was that she started talking really badly about me around campus. And I would have people come to my office and say, Jane said that you said this or you did this thing, and it doesn't sound like you. And so I just wanted to check and see where you're at with this. And I would be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know why she's saying those things, whatever. And so we both had the same supervisor. I sought assistance from our same supervisor. And this went on for months. Like, our supervisor was like, you two just need to meet together more frequently. You need to spend more time together so that you understand what you're each doing, all of these kinds of things. You go handle it, is basically what I got from her, which was really crummy because I was like, this woman is out here bad mouthing me all the time. Like, I don't want to sit in a one-on-one meeting with her. And at the same time, my supervisor took that director level role and took credit for what I wrote, submitted it to her supervisor and said she wrote the position description. She did not. And then made me apply to get my promotion. And during those 6 months in between that happening, I was being bullied and expected to do the director level work uncompensated. And so in the spring of 2015, I was extremely frustrated. I had applied for the promotion. We were going through the process, whatever. And the bully was out there saying horrible things about me. And I was like, hey, supervisor, this is not working. Like, I need you to help me out. And at one point she took me for a walk and she said, well, if you expect to be functioning at the director level, part of a director level behavior is managing conflict with other people. And so if you are not able to manage this conflict with Jane, you shouldn't expect to get the director level role.
Oh, that's hard.
Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. And I actually went straight to human resources when that happened. We were outside and we were just a half a block from HR. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to keep going for a walk. And I walked straight down to HR and I told them what happened. And they didn't really do anything to help with either of those people. And so eventually, I'm absolutely miserable in my job at this point. I don't even know if I want to stay, but I'm kind of staying to see if they will do right by what they should do. And I was in a high-level meeting with like the president of the university and the board of advisors for the university, and a piece of work came up and my supervisor took credit for it when it was something that I had created. And I was sitting across the table from her.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't say anything because then you feel like a little child. Like, no, that's my work.
Right.
So did you say something or did you just sit there
No,
gobsmacked?
because I just sat there gobsmacked. I was shocked. I told the person next to me, who was kind of my snark buddy during those meetings. And I was like, I actually did that. That was me. But I didn't raise my hand and say anything. By that point, I was so beat down and I was so sad and frustrated and exhausted that I just didn't have it in me to say anything. And then it was about a week and a half later that they told me that they had given the promotion to somebody from outside the university.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so I just
my heart just sunk like, okay. So what next? What did you stay for a little bit more or did you just leave on the spot?
No. So my supervisor told me that she wasn't giving me the promotion on a Tuesday at 11 o'clock in the morning. And so when she put the meeting on my calendar, I was like, great, she's giving me the job. Like, this is, Tuesday at 11 a.m. Like, that's a great time to get good news. If you Google when to tell someone that you're not giving them a promotion, it says 3 p.m. on a Friday. Right? You never give somebody that kind of news in the middle of the workday, in the middle of the work week. That's just not good practice. And so I went in with like salary expectations and expecting to get the job. And then she told me that they had given it to somebody else. And it was not a good conversation. I ended up I was like, I'm leaving right now. I have to leave campus right now. I cannot stay here right now. I feel so disrespected. I'm out. And so I stayed off campus for a couple days and then turned in my notice that Friday. Yeah.
That is such a hard thing to go through. Honestly, it is. And thank you for sharing that story because I'm sure so many people, if they haven't yet gone through this, will go through this. Because absolutely. Like I have also been rejected, spent hours crying in the bathroom. So I couldn't even leave the property because I was like red and mascara and all the things.
Yeah.
I feel you and thank you for sharing that story because so many people will relate to that. So you hand in your notice, clearly with nothing lined up afterwards. Yeah.
No.
So then what happened? Like, how did you, and I suppose I don't want to know the next job you got because you're fine. You're doing amazing work. But I want to know that process of like building yourself back up.
Yeah. So this was all at my last university job. This was not at the computing job that I mentioned earlier. This was I'm out of the university system.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, we looked at our finances and we said, can we spend some time with me not working? And we could. And so I was like, I've always wanted to spend time writing fiction. I love to write. Still to this day, I absolutely love to write. And so we decided that I would spend that summer writing. And, at that point we had moved on to IVF. We had really had a hard time getting pregnant. And so we were starting the IVF journey. And I was like, I can't with all the stress in my body, like this isn't going to go well. And so I spent that summer, I ran a half marathon. We spent many weekends and full weeks out backpacking out in the Rocky Mountains, which was amazing. I attended writing workshops. I took lots of naps. It was just a glamorous, glorious, perfect, beautiful summer. And honestly, I don't think I was quite ready to go back to work when that fateful LinkedIn email came in. But when I read that position description, I said, I don't know if I'm ready, but I know for sure that I will regret not putting in for this position. So I have to do it.
Yeah.
And that was, one of the best career decisions that I ever made, because working at NCAR in that role was incredible.
So you apply, you get that role. How long did you stay in that position?
8.5 years.
Okay. Wow.
8.5 years moving up.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, fantastic. Okay. So, going through that, spending that glorious summer, good on you for doing that. And honestly, like, good on you for just doing something that you enjoyed. I feel like sometimes, I'm very practical. I'm very like, in control of my life. But sometimes it feels like, let me say, I control everything of my life. Sometimes I feel like I think that, but this felt like that was happening for you. You had that summer, you did something that you enjoyed. And I feel like you're probably just open, like the universe opened up for you to get that role on LinkedIn. Like that's what it feels like to me when you're telling me this story. We can feel, and like I said, I am the most guilty of like, I'm going to make everything happen. But that just really feels like the universe was like ready, you know? Yeah. So awesome. I love this story. Okay. So 8.5 years, that's a long time. Because and I know where you are now, so let's get there. So from this 8.5 years, tell us this, in between, what got you to where you are right now today?
So I moved up steadily through the ranks at NCAR. I started by supervising a very small group, and I actually supervised that small group through a couple different iterations during the 8.5 years. And, but also NCAR has this incredible education assistance program. And so I told you that we had started the IVF process. That was, just at the beginning of that 6-month break, and was continuing into my first year at my new job. And I got to my first spring, and I said, you know what? I am not sure that this having a baby thing is going to happen. Another life goal that I have, it has always been getting my doctorate. I've always known that this was in my path. They have this education assistance program where they will pay for my entire degree except for my books. I'm going to apply for universities to get my doctoral degree in case this pregnancy thing doesn't work out, because I need to feel like I'm moving forward with something, and I don't feel like I have control over what's happening with the baby thing. So I applied to doctoral schools, and then in July or August, we're still going through IVF. We go through the implantation phase of taking an embryo that's been made in a test tube into my body to continue growing. And they give you Valium for that procedure because they want all of your muscles to be very relaxed. So I get home, take a really hard nap, and I got woken up by my phone, and it is my doctoral program at Creighton University saying they were accepting me into the program. And so I walked upstairs and I looked at my husband and I said, I'm totally pregnant. And he was like, well, I hope so. We just put that in like 3 hours ago. You better be. And I said, no. I said, the universe has a funny sense of humor. I just got accepted to my doctoral program. we're going to have this baby. I just knew in that moment, I was like, this is happening. And so it took me 5 years to finish school. I ended up being pregnant and or nursing for the entire 5 years and working full time.
Whoa.
Yes. So our younger child was a surprise baby, which happens a lot with IVF. And so we had the IVF baby and then we had a surprise baby very shortly thereafter. And so for 5 years, I was pregnant and or nursing and in school and working full time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I don't even know what to say. That is so hard.
Yeah.
So hard. Oh my goodness. But you made it through. So tell us, give us, wow. I'm like, give me a moment. Because that is amazing. Like, whoa. Okay. So you have these two babies. They're close in age, like
17 months.
17 months. Okay. Yeah.
So we had two under 2.
Yeah. Mine are 18 months apart. So totally get that. But I was not studying. So, no, especially my doctorate. So, okay. You get through this.
We get through this.
I want to ask you, this whole like having it all thing. Let's talk about that a little bit, because that's what is going through my mind.
Yeah.
Is that we can't have it all, right?
Yeah.
And during that time, you were, I suppose it might have looked on the outside like you were having it all, the mom and the doctorate and the work and the, everything's going amazing. But what had to give? There must have been things that you were like, this, it has to just give.
Well, sleep, obviously. Babies don't sleep.
Yes.
And my kids, neither one of them slept through the night reliably until they were 2. So, sleep was an issue. There are entire doctoral classes. I will be totally honest. I don't really remember what I learned. Like I know that I knew it at the time and what I needed to know to get through the class, but, I keep saying at some point I'm going to go back and reread all of my papers so that I can remember what I learned. And my husband is absolutely saint. He's an absolute saint. He spends so much time with the kids. He would take them out to the park for hours on end so that I could write papers and work on my dissertation and all of those kinds of things. And I didn't do very much social during those years. I mean, I really was just hunkered down. It was work, family, school. So, it was really, really, really hard. We also, we were really lucky that we had the means to start to hire a housekeeper. So we brought somebody in to do kind of the heavier lifts on cleaning the tubs and toilets and floors and all of that kind of stuff so that, we wouldn't have to deal with it, because that is really time consuming. And we made the decision that the time was better spent on family than on cleaning. And so, we made that financial decision to invest in that way. Yeah. So it just, it takes a village to get someone through a doctorate. It takes a village to raise children. We're really lucky that we have incredible people around us who gathered up and supported us and didn't feel bad when I would leave hanging out with people to go sleep and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a family around you? Did anyone move closer? No. Okay. Yeah. That's so many people I meet, especially in Colorado for some reason. Pretty much every single one of my friends around us, we don't have family nearby. Yeah. So, yeah, good on you making that choice to get the support. So many people don't do that. Like, oh, we have to do it all. Yeah, and that's huge to do that. So, all right, now And then just side note, we have like 4 minutes left. Can you stay a little bit over? Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, we have gone down deep. So this has been
So much.
wonderful. Yeah, this has been absolutely wonderful. So I'm enjoying this. Okay. So all of that, 5 years of just hard slog. And now I know you have your own business now. So what got you there to wrap this whole life?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I finished my dissertation in December of 2020. And then in 2021, I had a huge work project. I also took on a lot more responsibility at work in that year, and hit that compensation issue again, where I wasn't being paid for the work that I was doing. And my supervisor this time, my supervisor and my supervisor's supervisor both stepped up and tried to get me paid equal with other people on the team. And they really tried, but it was not meant to be. Human resources kind of blocked the compensation that we all felt was fair. And at the same time as that was happening, I was going through my executive coaching certification. And so it was a really interesting, I was getting, as part of your certification, you have to get coached all the time because you're practicing on one another, right? And so I was getting coached by all these people who were like, wait, what's happening with your compensation? Why are you still there? What are we doing next? And kind of like pushing me towards, we need to be doing something else. And so I stuck around as long as I did because they were, again, paying for my professional development in a big way. And I had a couple projects that I wanted to wrap up. I wanted to support my team. And so I loved my job. The job was not the problem, right? And the people were not the problem. It was just the compensation. So I stuck around while I was kind of finishing these big projects. And then I left in spring of 2023.
Okay.
And that was,
so you've had your own thing since then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So before we close with the final question, tell us what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I say, how can people work with you? I don't need like your LinkedIn profile. I need like, what does it look like? What do you offer? What are the services?
Yeah. So when I started Thriving Artists, my intention was working primarily with people who were in science, technology, engineering, and math. I really, over those 8.5 years at NCAR, and really the 3 years at Mines, where I was working with engineering students, fell in love with people who work in those fields. So I really love supporting the development of people who are, especially moving from like that individual contributor level to a leadership role within a STEM field. That's a really fun transition for me. And so working with me in that context often looks like one-on-one executive coaching. It can look like a longer engagement. It can look like a shorter time period where you're just trying to work on one specific skill. It kind of depends on what the individual needs. And then I also do a lot of workshops and trainings. So one of the ones that I've been doing a lot lately is about imposter syndrome. I wrote a book this year and published a book. And so I have a book about imposter syndrome that's tied to the training that I do in really beautiful ways. And so I've been doing that a lot. And that work is kind of branching out into other spaces. So those workshops, imposter syndrome affects all fields of work. And so people are pulling me into, finance and beauty products and also science and technology to do work within the space. It's relevant everywhere. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes,
yeah,
it absolutely is. I'm having these conversations, and almost every conversation there is some form, and people mention imposter syndrome. So yes, absolutely, your work is very relevant, probably to every single person at some point in their career.
Yeah,
that is definitely what I would say. All right, now to wrap up, we're going to close the loop, going all the way back to your younger self, your young you. I feel like we give our 20-year-old selves a hard time on all the things we should have done, but I strongly feel that they were awesome. So what would you thank your younger self for doing then that really set you up for now, or who you are as a person?
The two things that come to mind readily are developing grit. I have a lot of grit. I can do really hard things for a long time and get through them. And as long as they are for the benefit of the people around me or the benefit of the world, I don't have a lot of grit for mindless tasks. But as long as I'm doing work that I believe in, I will buckle down and do that work. And I think that goes all the way back to shoveling in the middle of a snowstorm, right? And the other thing is being able to get up on stage and speak. I did a lot of that even in my middle and high school years. And the ability to just stand up on stage and talk to people and engage with people and make eye contact and make an impact is something that I learned at a really young age that has benefited me through my entire career.
Mm-hmm. I will second that, both of those. The grit for shoveling in the snowstorm during the snowstorm to those 5 really hard years to, getting out when you needed to. And then, yes, and that is how I met you. Seeing you on stage at Disrupt HR, you were don't tell anyone, but definitely my favorite for that night. I absolutely loved it. I loved the storytelling and the visuals, and you were so engaging. So yes, I can absolutely second that, both of those.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you so much for your time today. It has been just a wonderful conversation.
Good. Thank you so much for having me, Candace. This has been fun. Thanks for letting me wander through my employment history. It's been fun.
Yes, absolutely. Any last things you want to say before we click stop?
I didn't actually hold up the book at any point, but here's the book. It's called My Monster Mungo, a story about imposter syndrome. And it is an illustrated book for adults. So it's kind of a fun, different way of looking at it.
Yes, it definitely is. And we'll include the link in the description as well. Thanks for showing us the picture.
Thanks.